Now, there is another problem which is associated by the schedule which is involved the aborted transaction. Uh, Whenever we say abort transaction, it means we want to undo all the actions which has been made by a particular transaction. So the second problem which are associated with the aborted transactions are is that suppose we have two transactions T1 and T2, and the transaction T2 is going to overwrite a value of a particular object A that is already modified by a transaction T1, and transaction T1 is still in progress. While it is in progress, T2 overwrites certain values on the object A. And while it is T1 is in progress, it is going to abort. So what will happen whenever there is an abort of the transaction T1, all the changes which has been occurred just because of the T1 to that database object are required to be undone. It means we have to restore the value of the object that is being modified to the value of the object before the T1 has changed it. So when T1 has aborted, its changes has to be undone, and these changes has to be done undone in a certain manner. So if due to abort T1 has aborted, so all the changes which has been done by T1 has to be undone. So what will happen? T2's changes will also lost, even though that T2 is decide to commit. For example, if you take an example, suppose there is a object A which was originally with the value equal to 5, and later on the transaction T1 has changed it to 6, and then after that T2 has changed the same object value to 7, and now the T1 is going to abort. So when T1 is going to abort, it will do it will undo all the actions. So whenever it will undo all the actions, so it has transformed the value from 5 to 6, and it will undo the action so that it will regain the value A is equal to 5. And now even if the T2 commits, it changes whatever it is being done on the object A will be lost. And the second problem which was associated, which we have already discussed, that is unrecoverable schedule, because with that uh, unrecoverable schedule is a kind of a schedule in which any transaction is going to update the value of an object which has been modified by the previous transaction, and the second transaction has overwritten it and commits, and then the first transaction is still in progress and is going to abort, then in that particular case, that kind of schedule is called unrecoverable schedule. And that is why we say that recoverable schedule is the kind of a schedule in which every pair of a transaction should be defined in such a manner that the Tj is going to read the data item which is previously written by another transaction Ti. The commit operation of Ti should appear before the commit operation of the Tj. Then only the schedule will be called as a recoverable schedule. Now, let us go with the cascading problem also. And so we want two things with the aborted transaction. One is recovery, the schedule should be recoverable. And the second thing is the schedule should be cascadeless. Now, what is the meaning of cascadeless schedule? Because we know that it may be possible that if a schedule is recoverable, to recover correctly from the failure of the transaction Ti, we have to roll back. So if we have to roll back several transactions, then that kind of transactions, aborting of the transaction is called cascading abortion. So such situation used to occur whenever if there is a transaction which is going to read a data item which is written by certain another transaction. And so an illustration has been shown that there is a three transaction T8, T9 and T10. T8 is going to read object A and then read the object B, and then it is going to update the object A. And then T9 is going to read the object A and then overwriting the object A, which is modified form. And then T10 is going to read the object A. So what will happen if T8, meanwhile, after doing all this, if T8 is going to abort, if T8 fails or T8 going to abort, so what will happen? It will try to restore the value of A before it has made any kind of modification. Now, the transaction T8 has written a value of A that is read by transaction T9. And this transaction T9 has written a certain value of A that is being read by transaction T10. So at this particular point, if this transaction 8 fails, it means transaction 8 has to roll back. And since T9 is dependent on T8, T9 also has to roll back. And since T10 is also dependent on T9, so T10 must have to roll back. So this particular phenomena in which a single transition failure is going to lead to the series of transaction rollbacks, it is called cascading rollback. And this cascading of the rollback, cascading rollback is not required. It is not desirable because if we have to do cascading rollback, it means we have to do certain amount of the work for restoring the value. So it means there must be certain restriction which should be imposed on the schedule so that uh, uh, cascading rollback should not occur. So we have to try, as in the case of first we have seen that the schedule should be recoverable. Even though if the schedule is recoverable, there is a possibility of cascading rollback. So this cascading rollback should be avoided. It means our schedule should be cascadeless. So how we can make it? So the cascadeless schedule is one where each pair of transaction Ti and Tj such that Tj reads a data item which is previously written by transaction Ti, the commit operation of Ti appears before the read operation of Tj. And so it will be recoverable too. So if this restriction is imposed while designing the schedule, then only we can have the cascadeless schedule. So to avoid such kind of the problem, we have to adopt certain kind of this strategy so that this kind of the problem can be avoided. And for doing that, we go with the lock-based concurrency control because the DBMS have to ensure not only the serializability, but it also have to ensure the recoverable schedule. It also have to ensure cascadeless schedule so that uh, no action of the committed transaction are going to be lost while there is an aborted transaction. So the database management system typically is going to use a locking protocol to achieve this objective, and this lock strategy which has to be introduced in the database management system, which is a kind of a small bookkeeping object which are associated with the database objects. So a locking protocol, of course, whenever we talk about protocol, it is a certain set of the rules which has to be followed by each transaction just to ensure that even though the action of the several transaction might be interleaved, the net effect should be identical to executing all the transactions in some serial order. So for that, we will be using the locks because we know that the uh, uh, If we want the recoverable schedule, we want serializable schedule, we want cascadeless schedule. Uh, it means that the data items which has to be accessed by the individual processes, it should be done in the mutual exclusive manner. Mutual exclusive manner means that while one transaction is accessing a particular data item, no other transaction should be modify that particular data item. So the most common method uh, which is used to implement this requirement uh, is to allow a particular transaction to access the data item only if it is currently holding a lock on that particular item. And for that, we have various modes in which the data items can be logged. So we have two modes in which the data items can be logged. The first one is the shared mode. Second one is the exclusive mode. Shared mode is a kind of a mode whenever a transaction wants only the read operation to be done, but it doesn't want write. In that particular case, it will ask to the concurrency control manager to share, to grant the lock in the shared mode. Meaning thereby in shared mode, the transaction which is requesting the lock, it will be only for the reading purpose, but not for the writing purpose. And similarly, the second mode is exclusive mode, in which the transaction is requesting the concurrency control manager to provide the facility so that the transaction will be able to read as well as write. Meaning thereby, whenever we talk about the shared mode, transaction will be only able to read the information. But if exclusive mode, it is going to read as well as the write. Now, for that implementation of the lock, every transaction is going to request uh, the kind of the lock in the appropriate mode for a particular data item, depending upon that what kind of operation it wants to perform for that particular data item. So, so what the transaction used to do, the transaction makes the request to the concurrency control manager, and then and it can proceed further. This transaction can proceed further only if the concurrency control manager grants the lock to particular transaction. So as you see that we have two kinds of modes in which the request can be uh, it can be requested, transaction can request, or it can be granted, that is the shared mode and the exclusive mode. But we, with these two modes, we have to also define the compatibility function also. Now for the compatibility function across these two modes, that is shared mode and the exclusive mode, of course one thing I have left, the shared mode lock, whenever it is asked or granted, it is represented by S, and exclusive mode is represented by X. So let us suppose that we have two arbitrary lock modes, that is A and B, and the transaction T1 requests a lock of mode A. Type of a mode is A on the data item Q, on which the transaction Tj currently holds. Suppose there is a data item Q which is being logged already by the transaction Tj, and Ti is requesting for the lock in a certain mode for the same data item. So Ti can be granted a lock on Q immediately in spite of the presence of mode B lock. Then we say that the mode A is compatible with the mode B. Since we have two modes, suppose there is an object A and it is being a lock has been granted to certain another transaction. It means that particular object is under the lock of the another transaction, and one transaction Ti is requesting for the lock for the same data object. But if the current data item Q, which is logged by a transaction Tj, and Ti is requesting for that, if the lock is if lock is granted to Ti at the same time whenever the Q is logged by some other transaction, then that case you can say that the mode is compatible with the another mode. So this is lock compatibility matrix which has been shown. We have two modes, S and X, that is shared mode and the exclusive mode. We have a S and X, which is shared mode and the exclusive mode. If one transaction has already logged, granted, concurrency control manager has already granted a lock, which is the shared mode, to a particular transaction, and another transaction is also requesting for the shared mode lock, then it can be granted. Otherwise, for the rest of things, it cannot be. Meaning thereby, if one transaction has been granted with the shared mode lock for a particular object, and the same for the same data object, another transaction is asking in the shared mode, it can be granted. But if concurrency control manager has granted exclusive mode for a particular data item to a certain transaction, and another transaction is requesting in the shared mode, then it is not compatible. So whenever you find true, it means it is the showing the compatibility, but the rest of the cases it is not showing the compatibility. So it means that shared mode is compatible with the shared mode, but not with the exclusive mode. Similarly, exclusive mode is not compatible with the shared mode, even it is not compatible with the exclusive mode. So at any time, whenever the several shared mode locks can be held simultaneously by the different transactions on a particular data item, and a subsequent exclusive mode lock request has to wait until the currently held shared mode locks are released. So, um, meaning thereby, if the compatibility should be there, then only immediately after the request, the lock can be granted by the manager to the transaction. Otherwise, it has to wait until unless it is going to release. So we have a process by which we are going to lock a data item in a certain mode, as well as there is a certain process by which it is going to unlock. So whenever a transaction wants and sends a request for the shared lock on a data item Q, it can be by executing. So it can be done, it can be used to put a statement like this, lock SQ. It means the transaction is requesting for a lock in the shared mode. S stands for shared mode for the data item Q. If the transaction is requesting for a lock of the data item Q in the exclusive lock mode, then it will be lock XQ. And similarly, if lock has been granted and the purpose is over, it has to unlock, so it can unlock by executing unlock Q. So, meaning the purpose of stating this is very simple, that further we will be looking for different type of the transaction which used to happen for the different kinds of schedule. So how a transaction can lock the particular data item and how it can unlock. Now it becomes necessary for any kind of transaction, if it wants to access a data item, it must first lock and that item. If the data item is already locked by another transaction in an incompatible mode, then the concurrency control manager will not grant the lock until all the incompatible lock held by the other transaction have been released. So meaning thereby the transaction has to wait until all the incompatible locks held by the other transaction has been released, until unless it is not going to be granted. Now, the granting of the lock, how the manager, concurrency control manager, grants the lock. So whenever it receives a request, whenever a transaction Ti requests a lock on the data item Q in a particular mode M, the concurrency control manager grants the lock, provided these two. But before going to that, let us discuss that what could be the situation uh, with the granting of the locks. Suppose that there is a transaction T2 which has a shared mode lock on a particular data item, and another transaction T1 is going to request an exclusive mode lock for the same data item. So since that data item is already in the shared mode lock with T2 and T1 is requesting it in the exclusive mode lock, now this shared and exclusive are incompatible. So T1 has to wait until the T2 is going to release the shared mode lock. Meanwhile, since T1 is waiting, meanwhile, another transaction T3 is going to give the request in the shared mode lock for the same data item. Since this lock request, shared mode lock request from the T3 is compatible with the current lock shared mode lock of transaction T2, so T3 will be granted the shared mode lock. Now, while T3 is executing, has been shared, has been granted the shared lock, again, it is possible that there is another new transaction T4 that requests a shared mode lock for the same data item. So it will be granted and is going to grant the lock before the T3 is going to release it. In fact, it is possible that there may be a sequence of the transaction that each is going to request a shared mode lock on same data item, and each transaction releases the lock a short while after it is being granted. So if it is so, then in that case, T1 never gets the exclusive lock, exclusive mode lock on that particular data item. It means T1 has never progressed. It will not able to progress, or you can say that it is starved. Now, this starving situation is not at all required. It is undesirable. So, to avoid this starving situation of the transaction of granting locks, and it can be done in the following two manners. The first is there is no other transaction holding on Q in a mode that conflicts with them. And second, there is no other transaction that is waiting for a lock on the same data item and that made its lock request before the transaction Ti. So meaning thereby the lock request will never get blocked by using these two instances. It is never logged, it is never get blocked by the lock request that is made later. Because as you see, as you have seen that in the previous example, T2 was executing in the shared mode lock for the data item and T1 is requesting for exclusive mode, but it is not granted because exclusive mode and the shared mode is not compatible. Then meanwhile, T3 has requested for the shared mode, it has been granted, but T4 has also requested, it is also granted, and T1 has to wait and it is going to be in the starving situation. So this will not happen if we follow the granting rule with these two instances. So it means we must have a protocol by which we can issue or grant the locks to the, and that protocol is known as two-phase locking protocol. The two-phase locking protocol, we have more protocols also, that is the strict two-phase locking protocol and rigorous two-phase locking protocol. But first, we will discuss about the two-phase locking protocol. What is two-phase locking protocol? Now, this two-phase locking protocol, because it is the essential requirement that it should be serializable, it should be recoverable, the schedule which will be defined, it should be serializable, it should be recoverable, as well as it should be cascadeless. So this two-phase locking protocol is going to ensure the serializability and it is going to issue the lock and unlock requested in two phases. And what are these two phases are? The first phase is the growing phase and second phase is the shrinking phase. The growing phase means when a transaction may obtain the locks but may not release any lock. So it means it is the initial phase whenever a transaction is going to request for the lock, but it is in this phase it is not going to release any lock. And the shrinking phase is a kind of a phase in which transaction may release lock but may not obtain any kind of lock. So initially a transaction is in the growing phase and the transaction acquires the lock as needed. And once the transaction releases the lock, it enters into the shrinking phase and it can issue no more lock request at that particular stage. So I'm going to give you an example that how this uh, two-phase protocol can work and what could be the problem and how these problems can be solved. Now here an example has been shown in which we have two transactions, transaction T1 and transaction T2. And the purpose of this transaction T1 is to deduct, uh, debit 50 rupees from the account of B and credit the same amount into the account of A. And T2 is a kind of a transaction which is going to display the total amount of A plus B, that is the sum of A and B. Now suppose that the previous value of A is rupees 100 and the previous value of B before executing these transactions, the previous value of B is 200. So what will happen if the two transactions T1 and T2 are being executed serially, either in T1 T2 manner, means the sequence will be T1 followed by T2 or T2 followed by T1. So if we take the situation that T1 followed by T2, first T1 will be executed and then in serially if it is executed. So first of all T1 will ask for the lock on the B so that it will be able to read B, and then it is going to deduct the amount and write the deducted amount in the B, and then it is going to unlock B, and then it is going to lock A, then read A, and then it is going to write A and unlock A. So what will happen? The B amount is debited and A account is credited. So with this, the B amount will become 50 and A amount will become 250. So when this transaction T2 is executed after T1, so T2 is saying that lock SA. So it is going to in the shared mode and it is going to read A, then it is going to unlock A, then it is going to lock B and read B and unlock and display A plus B. So anytime when the transaction T2 will be the final state of the database management system, that is database will be displaying the value A plus B, and A will be 50 and B will be 250. So it will be 300. So in this way, if it is executing serially. But what will happen if the transactions are interleaved and the situation will come like this? In this situation, first T1 is requesting for a lock in the exclusive mode for the data object B, and the concurrency control manager has granted the exclusive mode lock for the object B to the T1. So it will read B, it will deduct B, it will write B, and then it is going to unlock B. Then T2 is going to request for the lock in the shared mode. So this lock is granted to the transaction T2. So it is going to read A, unlock this value A, and then it is going to lock SB and the granted. So it will read B, unlock B, and display A plus B. Now see the difference in the, if this is being executed serially, the consistency of the database will be in the consistent state. But if this is the situation in which the transactions are interleaved, then what will happen? Since T1 is still in progress and it has debited the amount, but it has not credited the amount in A. So what will happen? It will display the wrong value. So whenever it is going to display the wrong value, it is not desirable. So this is the kind of a schedule 1 which is going to give the incorrect result. So, and for getting the incorrect result, why it is so? The reason for this mistake is that the transaction T1 has unblocked the data item B too early. As a result, that T2 saw in an inconsistent state. If this is not unlocked, then T2 will not see in the inconsistent state. So this particular schedule shows that the action which is executed by a transaction, as well as at the point at which the concurrency control manager, which is going to grant the locks, the transaction making the lock request cannot execute its action until the concurrency control manager is going to grant the lock. So hence the lock must be granted in a particular interval of time between the request operation and the following execution of the transaction.